like a waistband. I don't want to be pawing you in front of.
I want to make a couple of announcements before we start the show, if I could have your attention. The history of the community house is our topic tonight. Which is worse, the feedback or the scraping of the chairs? I don't need the mic. No, I've got small children. Sit down! Barbara Campbell's going to come up and introduce our speakers and give you a long, involved background. Barbara Allen. Barbara Campbell. I don't know who brought the drinks tonight. We're going to have Lynn Hay come up and make an announcement. I also want to say the Topanga calendars are for sale in the back with Linda and Pearl. And you can get your Historical Society memberships as well from Pearl. Pearl, raise your hand. Yay! So please partake liberally. I hope you enjoyed the potluck. We got a huge show that got packed tight, so speakers are going to have to speak very quickly and maintain their time. We'll probably run a little over in any case. Lynn, come on up and do your thing. That's all of me. Thank you. Bye.
I just want to make a brief public service announcement here, which has to do with TSEPT. And there are two things that I want you to know. One is that as of Monday, last Monday, TSEPT has a website, which is truly beautiful. So the web address is t-sep.org. So in the future, as long as you've got electricity or phones or whatever, there will be emergency information which will go up on the website. So please go take a look at it, check it out, read it. It's really great. The second thing is that I just want to put a plug for TSEP that we're always looking for people to help in emergencies. So if any of you would like to take a brochure and you might be interested in helping with the shelter, the hotline, the pet emergency team, then please let me know and take one of these, and we'll be glad to train you. So, thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. And our first speaker is Kirby, and she's got some pictures to tell you about, give you some visual aid that will help you understand what the speakers will be speaking about, the other speakers. Thank you, Ami.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have a slideshow that's going to give you a glimpse of the history of the community house. And my partner in this endeavor is Noel Rhodes, who is going to be working the slides, and I'm going to be giving the narration, and it's all going to happen in 15 minutes, so I'm going to talk fast. So we need I've got my flashlight here. We're all ready. This could go out too. This light here, I think. Here we go. The pictures for the presentation came from the. Okay, here we go. The pictures for this presentation came from the Topanga Historical Society's archives and the community club scrapbooks. I'll stress the early history, and the speakers will bring us up to date. Now, this first picture shows the community house heroines. This was taken in the early 1950s at a Topanga Community Women's Club board installation ceremony. Now, I'll tell you who these people are. Standing from left to right are Dorothy Bomey, May Lewis. The next one is not identified. Does anybody know who she is? Helen Praveen. Seated from left to right are Michelle Ruth, Jean Baker, and the next one is unidentified. In 1948, the newly formed Topanga Chamber of Commerce suggested that a women's club be formed with the sole purpose of raising money to build a community house. In November of that year, the Women's Club was formed and immediately began its designated task. This was a dynamic group that achieved remarkable accomplishments. In the club's first year, their membership grew from 26 to about 100, and they raised $1,471.50 from a variety of fundraisers that included dances, bridge parties, country socials, and a song contest. Now the next slide. Here we go again. This is another women's club installation ceremony, probably taken in the mid-50s. Now, I'm going to give you the names because there are some people in this audience who probably will recognize them. From left, Kay Olson, Betty Nicholas, Mary Griffith, Mary Bell Alexander, Julia Butler, Georgia Colomer, unidentified, Dorothy Bomey, Mildred Burkell, unidentified, Maxine Carnes, Hazel Talbot, Helen Provine, May Lewis. Pearl Sloan, who will speak later in the program, remembers the club members. She was a member of the club at that time. She said, there were 3 age groups in the club: the young, the 20s and 30s, the middle-aged, the 40s and 50s, and the old guard, who, she says, dressed like ladies and were corseted and bosomy. The younger group, Pearl says, looked up to the old guard and enjoyed being in their houses that she remembered as being amply furnished with pictures on the walls, sideboards full of table linens, and bookcases filled with books. Now the next one. And finally, a third and last picture of an installation event a few years later. The ladies had given up wearing long dresses but kept the corsage and candle tradition. On the far left is Catherine Penny, who became active in the mid-50s and was president for 7 years, 1960 to 1967. Catherine was an excellent record keeper, and many of her records make up an important part of the Historical Society's archives. She probably was the author of a chronological report of the community house's progress, which I found in the archives and helped greatly in preparing this presentation. Okay, the next one. Just a few months after the Women's Club's beginnings in 1948, Dorothy Bomey was appointed the building site chair, and in 1950 the club chose this site, a 12-acre parcel owned by Mr. and Mrs. E.R. Julian. It was on the market for $12,000. This is 12 acres. But the Julians offered it to the club for $6,000, and they accepted a $500 down payment with an agreement to pay $50 per month at a modest interest. That's a pretty good deal. We have to remember this was in 1952. The club sold a second edition of the Memory Cookbook to get the $500 down payment, and Pearl Sloan's going to tell us about that cookbook later on. Okay, the next one. Now, this is the first in a series of 3 snapshots taken in 1951. I love these pictures. The penciled notation on the back of this picture reads, Assistant County Forester R.N. Van Wagner hands seedling trees from county fire truck to Mrs. Harry C. Bomey, landscape chairman of Topanga Community Women's Club. Captain John Barton of Malibu District gives trees to Mrs. William P. White, president of the club. The trees' gift of forestry are some of the more 100 given to the club. Okay, the next one. Yeah. Whoops. We know you can do it. No. Here we go. Okay. This shows Dorothy Bomey with shovel and Mary Stouffer in the fur piece, looking on. You know, I think that's the wrong one. Here we go. Yeah, all right. I love their outfits. Now, Dorothy and Mary were best friends and members of the old guard. May. May was the Women's Club first president. Dorothy was the power behind the throne. Dorothy and her husband, Harry, were civic-minded, gregarious couple. Harry was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and it was at Sycamore Lodge, one of the buildings on their property, where the Women's Club held their first meetings. Okay, now the next. Yeah.
What year was this?
This is 1951. Thanks, I'm sorry. This is all 1951. Another view of Dorothy Bomey. Dorothy's granddaughter says of her, she was endowed with the social graces, was unfailingly polite, could flatter anyone to do anything, and was a force to be reckoned with. Okay, the next one. This is 1952. In May 1952, the club obtained a building permit and started work. This shows the graded building pad and the initial work for the foundation. At the time this photo was taken, Beverly Hills architect Kenneth Swift had drawn up plans. Harold P. King of Sherman Oaks was appointed structural engineer. Topangan Ed Landon had volunteered his expertise as contractor, and local excavator Jerry Hanks had graded the pad, and a community house board of trustees had been appointed. Okay, the next one. This is a series about digging the well. In 1952, this is one of my favorite pictures of all time. I love this picture, it says so much. In 1952, a well was drilled that brought in a capacity of 40,000 gallons a day. This was important since Topanga's water came from local wells and water was often in short supply. This shows Ray Alley and Frank Malloy and their family members ready to drill the well. Okay, the next. Another view of the drilling party, grouped under what looks like a shade structure where no doubt a hearty meal will be prepared and eaten later. It looks like the coffee is already on the boil. Next one. Now the next three will be pictures of drilling the well. I don't know who these are, but we can just take a good look at them. This is the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. It was an important event to make sure to get water. They had to water the trees, and it was most important. Okay, now the next one. All right. A lot was accomplished in 1952. Along with drilling the well, the foundation was completed. This shows laying out the foundation forms. Okay, the next one. This is another view of laying out the foundation forms. Can't tell you who these people are. And the next one. Oops.
Was all this volunteer?
Yes, all of this, as I understand from reading, was volunteer. They paid for the materials, but the people who did the excavation and the people who did the well drilling, I think, was volunteer. We're having a little trouble here. Okay.
That's the one or is the next one? Or did I skip one?
Yeah, this is right, yeah. Okay, this shows contractor Ed Landon, Ways and Means Chair, Mrs. Carlos P. Baker in the center, and Women's Club President Dorothy Bomey looking at building plans. In front of them, oh no, sorry, here we go. We're getting a little mixed up. All right. Yeah, here we are, looking at plans and getting ready to construct the foundation forms. This is what that one is. Okay, the next one then. Preparing to pour the formations, the foundations. The small wooden structure on the far left was a donated child's playhouse that became the tool shed. Okay, and the next one. Here we go. This shows contractor Ed Landon, Ways and Means Chair Mrs. Carlos P. Baker in the center, and Women's Club President Dorothy Bomey looking at the building plans. In front of them is a stack of rebar that will be tied into the foundation forms. All right, the next. Now these are members of the Topanga Riding Club who volunteered to tie rebar. Okay, the next. Another view of tying rebar. Dorothy Bomey in the braids can tie rebar as well as preside at meetings and dinner parties. All right. Pouring coffee. This is Dorothy Bomey pouring coffee to Frank Malloy, Ray Alley, and Jerry Hanks, who were definitely the heroes of this year when so much was accomplished. Okay, the next. The three guys, another view of the heroes. 4 years would pass before work continued on the building as funds had run out. Now we come to the doldrums of the event of the building. Okay, the next. Now this shows the front and back pages of a 4-page brochure that was produced to help raise funds for the project. Fundraising became the overarching reality. Perhaps thoughts such as, did we bite off more than we could chew, troubled the sleep of the faithful, but a dogged determination kept the project going. The progress report states that $5,900 had been spent so far, and $19,725 was needed to finish the job. Okay, next. This shows the brochure's inside pages. The major fundraising projects, aside from continuing food sales, rummage sales, and social events, was a brick drive, where community members pledged money to buy bricks. 42,000 were needed. Because of inactivity on the project due to lack of funds, a new building permit was taken out. Okay, next. Now, these are really interesting pictures. This is 1955, and these pictures came from the community club scrapbooks. Enough money was raised in 1955 to frame the building and construct the brick walls. The Women's Club hired a bricklayer to oversee the volunteer workers. 6 years had passed since the building site was purchased. Okay, the next one. Another view of the construction. This set of pictures, 2 more will follow, come from a group of about 10 that are in the community club's scrapbooks. And the next one. This is the roof timbers nailed in place. And the next one. A final view of the project. The man on the scaffold is Melvin Penny, one of the few Topangans who remember these times. Melvin is now in his 90s and lives in Hawaii. After the walls were in place, work stopped again because of lack of funds. The Women's Club took on the obligation to pay off a considerable debt incurred for the building materials and labor. In 1958, the last $500 owned on the property was paid off, and the Women's Club continued to raise funds, sometimes using innovative schemes such as the next. The diamond bracelet watch. This was raffled off. This watch was raffled off, a watch that May Griffith, formerly May Sofer, the Women's Club first president, won on a TV show in 1960. She won other valuable gifts too, but I can't recall what they were. They realized between $750 and $800 from the raffle. I wonder who has that watch. Next. Now this shows the community house remained roofless until 1964. I think it's a little unclear when that roof went on. 12 years after the property was furnished. It was a long, long time. Despite its unfinished condition, several events took place in the building. I remember attending with my husband a beautiful Renaissance music concert shortly after we moved into the canyon in 1963. I remember watching the stars as the music played. And the next one. Now, this is a view of the finished community house taken in the 1980s, and it looks very much like the building we know today that is a vital center for Topanga's meetings and festivities. Almost all the women and men whose efforts built this basic structure have either moved away from Topanga or have passed on. Others took their place over the next 4 decades to continue the work. And here are a few more modern pictures culled from the community house scrapbooks that document how the work continues. And Noel and I chose just a few. The scrapbooks have wonderful pictures in them, but here is one that shows building the stage. And the next one, another view of building the stage. And then the next one. Now this shows Lee Kelly. She certainly should be in this show. She's done so much for the community house. This was a tree planting event. And the next one, we're almost finished. This is Karen Danishevy at the tree planting event. Thank you. I got it wrong. And then the next one and the last one, oh, hopefully. Yeah. Oh, here we go. This is Dick Sherman leading a work party. Now this ends the slideshow, and I think that those energetic women we saw in the first picture would be filled with joy if they could see what their vision and efforts have brought about. Oh, yeah, Barbara reminded me to give a little pitch here for the Topanga Historical Society's office that has our archives in it. And for those of you who are interested in looking at the archives, which include pictures and documents and back issues of the Topanga newspapers and many wonderful things, we're open on Wednesdays from 10 to 1, that's the day I'm there, and from Sundays from 1 to 4, that's the day that Dan Kirby is there. And if you want to come another time that we're not there, just call me up, 1969, and we'll open up special for you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Tommy. We're not going to have any more pictures, so if you want to turn all the lights back on so our speakers won't stumble as they come to the podium. Thank you very much. And now, to tell us 30 years secrets, we have Pearl Sloan, long time.
Okay. Well, I gotta tell you, and it's wonderful to see so many people here, that I was 32 years old when in 1949, when a whole bunch of us, young people who had just moved up here, had no social life, and Dorothy Bomey and Mary Sofer started this marvelous women's club, and we met at Sycamore Lodge, which is across the street from the church, the what do you call that? Community church. And it was a wonderful place to meet, and we had marvelous times. There was a woman by the name of Carolyn Natz, and she started bringing a cake to be raffled off. And my gosh, I think we raised $5 raffling off that cake. And because she did this every month, the club voted to pay for the ingredients, which I think were $1.75. Also, at that time, this is my very well-worn copy of the Women's Club Memorial Cookbook in 1949 and 1950. They didn't say what it was a memorial to or for, but it's an incredible memorial now, all these years past, of who lived in the canyon at that point in time and what they did. We also had 3 gas stations. George Colomer had a signal station where the video store is now. A guy by the name of somebody Ross owned the Chevron station, and a man by the name of Carl Stint had a mobile station where the Inn of the Seventh Ray is now. To my knowledge, none of those lands have been dug up to see what terrible things are underneath them. What?
No secrets revealed.
Yes, right, yes, yes. This cookbook was all typed. I don't remember who did it.
I know Georgia Collimer.
Georgia Collimer typed it?
I read it in the Topanga Journal this morning.
Huh.
4 months.
One of the recipes in here, well, first of all, the first recipe in this wonderful, wonderful book is from Bess Truman. And guess what recipe she sent? Tuna casserole. There are pages of tuna casseroles and meatloaf and good stuff like that. Except that there was an older woman, Lydia Loudon, who put in a recipe for Norwegian poor man's cakes. And the recipe starts out with whipping cream, eggs, and brandy. Any of you who want any of these wonderful recipes, I'll be glad to share them with you. Okay, is that my time up?
No, not yet.
Oh, all right. I just had a tooth pulled this morning, so I'm, a little bit giddy. Bill and I have to tell you too that Bill Sloan did all the framing of all these windows in here. There wasn't, it was a much smaller community then. I think in this whole cookbook, from reading all the names of all these people, Elva Segrist was the principal of the school, and the woman whose husband owned the liquor store. They were the only two women in this whole book who worked outside of the house. Almost all of us had one car, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. It was a wonderful time, and I'm certainly most happy that Bill and I have been able to stay in this community this long. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Is it on? Yeah. Thank you very much, Pearl. We enjoyed that tremendously. Maybe we should bring that cookbook back. Wouldn't you all like to have... Yeah, you just dropped something yellow out of there.
You know, we might sometime have potlucks out of recipes that were in this book.
Good idea.
And charge money.
We could have 20 different tuna casseroles, all with different names. Exactly, a tuna casserole cook-off. Okay, now our next speaker has been around a long time as well, and is going to tell us all about the beginnings of the preschool co-op. Michelle Acker.
Oh, no, I'm okay. Okay. I just feel so honored to follow Pearl. She's one of my favorite people. And, but I'll try to follow her. I came here in '61, and we formed, shall I start at the beginning? Okay, I'll try to cut to the chase. We had a dog named Boris, Bathless Boris. Everybody knew Bathless Boris. He used to follow the Wiley kids to school every day. And I have him to thank for my career as a teacher and in starting some of these things that I was involved in, because he followed the Wiley kids to school, and the principal would call me to come and get him. And they had a special rope at the school for these critters that follow kids. There were also horses and stuff. And so, and anyway, Mr. Nevia started speaking to me and resulted in my career as a teacher. He would not accept my explanation that I was really an anthropologist. He wouldn't take that. So we started a tutoring group in the 60s to tutor children who were behind. At that time, we had a lot of hippie kids who were living in cars, and they needed to be supported because there was a part of the community that did not accept them. In fact, there was a woman, I guess it's safe to mention her, Mrs. Blvd, who wanted bathrooms segregated, one for the good kids and one for the long-haired kids. And she used to carry a toilet around with her for her toddler. Anyway, so those kids needed to be taught. They needed to have some stability, and there were 10 of us who were very committed. We actually tutored every day. And since we all had preschoolers, we were organized to have, we had a play group for those children, for our kids. And, you know, one parent took care of the kids, and the others went to teach at the school. And we were very happy with this arrangement until the day that Gretel Shanley came to us and said, "My friend Lillian Haig needs a job, and I want you to start a nursery school." And I really didn't want to do it. I knew what was going to happen. In fact, I went to Jean Baker, who was my mentor. You know who Jean Baker was. You saw her picture. She was Kenny Doffner's mother-in-law. Kenny, where are you? And I said to her, you know, I really don't want to do this because, you know, the slackers are gonna make us work harder. And so she said, so teach the slackers how to be good community members. So that's what we did. So we started this little nursery school, and we had a lot of problems because it wasn't set up for anything like that. There was what was called, oh dear, I can't say it out loud, can I? But it was a waterless hole in the ground. That was the turlet, you know, back there. The outhouse. Except that's not what it was called. And the day came when the investigator was coming for the permit, you know, to make everything right. And we didn't have any toilets. So they were back there, but they weren't connected. So some of us just splashed water all around. And at the opportune time, at the opportune time when she was back there, the little kids were released, and they yelling, you know, and making and she just, oh, I've got to get out of here. So she just looked at her, and we passed. So those kinds of things we used to do, and one of the memorable things, personally for me, was 7 o'clock in the morning, because that was when Mrs. Penny used to call me to complain about something that the kids did. You know, there was some sand in here, or, you know, some things left. And so I decided that I was going to be positive, and I wasn't going to dread this call. I was taking yoga, so I was going to do my handstand against the wall. And so when she called, I was upside down. And she used to say, "You sound funny. You sound kind of funny." But I had a lot of respect for her, because although she was the guardian of the community house, she was, and she was with this incredible group of women who sewed pot holders and had rummage sales and eked out pennies to build this place, and I have utmost respect for them, because they did it. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh, there had been some, almost, okay. There had been some other play groups that Louise Larson told me about. One of them was met over at the Eden Ranch, but that was early in the 50s, in the 40s. But that was a play group. It wasn't a nursery school. It wasn't this. We went for the big time. Yeah. The person that did the bylaws was Jeannie Francis, but there are a lot of people like Ami Kirby was there, Nancy Presley, Mary Seepin, Louise Thomas, Stephanie Armstrong, Terry Nakawatase, Elka Williams, Jean Walker, Biddy Griffiths, Marlene Bertzel, and me. And the first year, our director was Lillian Haig, and the second year it was Pat Larson, and the third year it was Hillary Storer. So some of these names, you know, like the Larson name, keep coming up because the families have been here a long time. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And for our next speaker, all I need to say is Jan Moore is back.
Oh, golly, this place looks just the same, I'll tell you. A little different, but just the same. I had to laugh about the outhouse out back. First time, we moved to the canyon, bought in 54 and moved in 55. So I was busy with small children and never came up here except to a couple of strawberry festivals where Chuck won the grand prize, which was $50 worth of Corningware. He was about 5, and he looked at those dishes and his eyes started to fill with tears. And some nice gentleman, I don't know who it was, said, "Oh, here's your prize," and gave him a little red truck. Do you remember that? Yeah. But the outhouse was here at the time of the Strawberry Festival. That was funny. And then you talked about the gas stations, the 3 gas stations, Pearl. You talk about things that are buried. You know what's buried out there? What's left of the outhouse. Thank you, Richard Sherman. He says, we're supposed to dig this up, but that's too much trouble. So, yeah, that's so funny. It's bringing back so many. That light, the chandelier up there, Don Hilston got that from a home that was being demolished in Holmby Hills and brought it here. And for the first time, it always had one light that was out, and they're all working now. That's amazing. That's just amazing. Let's see, what else we have here? Oh, when the new board came in after Michelle and the others, I recognized a lot of the names you named. The first thing, I think our first president, I think, was Harriet Swenson, bless her sweet soul. And Lois Mason was treasurer, and boy, I mean, that's a sharp cookie. She looked at the books, and I think her exact words were, whoa! And she said, we'd better have some fundraisers. And so you know, the woman said, what do? We raise funds, right? So we went out. Mainly the problem was the road had been redone. It used to come pretty much straight up from the boulevard, and it was re-engineered to go around the edge. It's still pretty steep, but it was better than that, and it was paved, and the paving, they took out a loan to pay for the paving and the bathrooms, the wonderful bathrooms. So when we came in, those loans still had to be paid off. There were still your regular bills, insurance, you can't believe the insurance on this place, the gas, the propane, the electric, and all this sort of stuff. And so we started, let's see, what did we start doing? Oh yeah, bake sales, always a bake sale, along with the preschool bake sales. Do you remember Tony Wright's Mexican dinner? I mean, Heartburn City. And then, I don't know whether this is a new screen or not, but the first screen we had up there, this may be the same one, I don't know. Penny Peterson knew somebody in Hollywood and got a print of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory before it was even in the theaters. And we bought on spec a screen, showed the movie, and paid for the screen. You know, I had a little left over. That was fun. We had bingo, the only bingo in California that failed. Yeah, I know. Joanne Hilston was the only one who faithfully came every time, you know. And we had canyon capers. I see that the curtains have been replaced. Myra and I had a wonderful adventure getting the first curtains up there. The first ones came, and the man hung them up, and they were about this high above the floor. And he says, oh, they'll hang out. And Myra goes, so he says, well, who measured these things? And we said, you did. So he took them away. I don't know whether he brought new ones or we got them, but anyway, we did get them for canyon capers. But one of the main things that we did that was a big help is, for some reason, the road paving came to about the top of the hill and stopped. All around the community house was dust in the summer and sea of mud in the winter. So you remember slogging in your boots and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, we got it paved, and then we could rent out the place. And we started renting out the place for all sorts of things. 20 years ago, this coming June, we had a wedding reception here, and the young people who were there sitting right over there. 21? Oh, see, I still can't count. They never would let me be treasurer. And then there were some break-ins and burglaries at Topanga Elementary. And so we thought, you know, that place is sitting up there all by itself. We better get a caretaker. So a young man named John, whose last name I don't remember, volunteered to park his little camper out here. So he was here, and we felt a little safer about that. And the only thing I remember about John is a story he told me about one summer night when he had left all the doors open because it was so hot, and he was trying to cool off the building. And he woke up in the middle of the night because he heard a noise in the kitchen. Uh-oh, burglars. So he crept out of his trailer around to the kitchen door, reached in, flipped on the light, and there were 5 coyotes in the kitchen, one standing on the table in the middle. I said, John, what'd you do? He said, well, I just opened the door and they just trotted out, you know. God. Then Steve Nelson came and was in his trailer out back for quite a while, and then Lee and Richard came, and that was so great. And then we finally got the regular renters. Remember Bernie Weiss and his karate school? They and the preschool were the faithful all-the-time renters. The preschool was here in the morning, and they would sweep, and then Bernie would come in and mop the floor because you do karate in your bare feet. So that was great. Louis and Joy, Joy Hart's over here. She and Louis painted the meeting room, and we finally got some decent carpet in there. You remember, there were just little rags and bits of rugs that were in there for a long time, and it was always cold, always cold. We had a little gas heater in there. And I got here early one night to light the little gas heater because it was so cold, and to make the coffee and stuff. And I lit the little gas heater in a hurry because I was late, as usual, and thereby proving that you can live perfectly well with no eyelashes or eyebrows. So then I don't know whether it's this heater, I don't know whether this is a new one. It looks like a new one to me. But with the first heater that was in this, in this area was one that we got for $50 from the Mermaid Tavern. A bunch of the fathers went up there and took it down and brought it here and put it up. It was a whole Saturday job to put the first heat that was in here. That was really nice. So what else did we get? Oh yeah. That's next. Well, all of the little things we were doing were fine, but we needed a large fundraiser. So in about 1970 or 71, we had an arts and crafts show. And we chose Memorial Day weekend because it didn't conflict with anybody. And we had it for 3 days. We had arts and crafts, and when we sold hot dogs and hamburgers and sodas. And as Myra remembered, it was financed on Bert's credit card. And we made the glorious total of $2,500, and we thought, we've hit the mother lode. and so, but Myra came to me and she said, you need more and better arts and crafts. And I said, yes, we do. Can you handle that? Can you take care of that? And she was stuck with it for about the next 8 years, right? And then Lois Mason came to me and she said, music, you need music. I said, oh, we sure do. Can you handle that? And she did, you know, then we had all that. So the next year, we added music and all sorts of good stuff and renamed it the Topanga Days Country Fair. And that must have been 72. I'm a little foggy, you know. But the funniest part was that we had the fair for 2 or 3 years, then somebody notified the sheriff's department that these people were having this wing ding up there, and they didn't have any permits. Well, they were right. We didn't have any permits. You know, what's with permits? So I can remember, Myra and I are standing out there in the hall with a representative of the sheriff's department. And he says, you've got to have permits. If you're selling food to the public you're inviting in, you've got to have permits. I said, well, what if we don't get permits? And he said, well, then, madam, I'll have to put you in jail. But the best part, I'm starting to tear up, and Myra goes, call the media. And after we scraped ourselves off the walls, we went down, the whole WISA board went down to the Hall of Administration. You should have seen us down there. Permits, what's for permits? And we got all the permits that we could ever need for anything. And oh, God. So, but when you get permits, it calls the health department to your place. Well, we thought we were in pretty good shape out here. We had a couple of refrigerators. The old, wonderful old stove, that must be 50 years old out there. We had acquired a 3-compartment sink for $50 from Norm Krause, and we thought we were in good shape. But the health inspector said you've got to have a hand-washing sink, and you've got to have a screen back door, and you've got to get rid of that butcher block. Oh, okay. So we got a little hand-washing sink and plumbed it in. We got a screen door on the back, and we trundled the butcher block out back. They came back, inspected. Oh, everything was wonderful. The screen door worked. And as soon as they left, the butcher block came back in. And the hand-washing sink, as far as I know, had never been used for anything except a wastebasket. So, but now I see there's all new stuff out there. That's wonderful. We did acquire the big fridge. That was good, too. That was just lucky. And let's see, what else did we do? Oh, we started the swap meet. I brought in some bucks. We had a bunch of parties and that sort of stuff. We started selling the T-shirts, the Topanga Creek Yacht Club, the Trans-Topanga Airlines. Started the parade. Ski Topanga, I forgot, that's Jimmy Gaines was the Ski Topanga. And let's see, there's a whole page more good stuff here. Oh yeah, the kitchen stuff. I got the pizza oven, that was big. Built the stage at the Bowl. The other thing that was good, we had a disaster fund. And the money from Topanga days was filling up the disaster fund. Then in 1980, the big flood came. I'm sure everybody can remember the big flood. Well, the Women's Club, nothing happened here. I mean, the community house was fine. But all over the canyon, there were people in trouble. And the Women's Club went around and gave checks to people. And not one of those checks was less than $100. And 23 years ago or so, $100 bought a lot of groceries. So that was one of the good things we did. The other thing is that all the landslides that happened, Caltrans says, we got to have a place to put this dirt. And we said, we have a place. And the ballpark, the ball field was born from the slides and the floods of 1980. So yeah, that worked out pretty neat. Well, that's about all I have to say. I guess I'm just delighted. The bathrooms, oh my word. Talk about uptown. We replaced the bathrooms at least once. Then we have like 3 30-foot seepage pits down somewhere under the ball field. And you guys are set for a while. That is the men's room as pretty?
Thank you, Jan. Jan drove quite a distance to get to us tonight, so we really appreciate you coming. And our next speaker is Randy Just. I believe he is current president of the community club. I always want to call it the women's club, but it's not. It's the community club now.
Not anymore. It's not just a women's club anymore.
That's right.
Is this thing working? All right. Hey, I want to be a little nostalgic. I want to bring up something from the past here. I'm the current president of the Women's Club, proudly. I noticed there's a lot of past Women's Club presidents in here, and I just would like you all to stand up. If you're too old to stand, just wave your foot in the air. Yeah, there's Lola. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this whole night is about the community house, but the community club are the fools that try to take care of the place. And I think it's great. In the 50s, the community house was built by the Women's Club. In the 70s, the Topanga days, probably the greatest fundraiser in the whole world, was born. And in the 80s, the ball field came up, and the new administration has added their own little addition to the canyon. We've got the Topanga calendar to add. And we're going to try to sell. It's not too late to buy a 19. No, we don't have any left from the 19. It's not too late to buy a 2004 calendar. It's only January. There's some in the back for sale. Anyway, I don't really know what to say. It's been a pleasure working my ass off up here at the community house. You can see, look at those beautiful building blocks up there. That's a new sound insulation system designed by Mr. Neil, and that's why we all sound so good up here at the podium, because of that. It's mostly, we haven't put any great strides ahead, but mostly we've been doing a lot of keeping it maintained here. But there is a group of people that has just formed called the Community House Improvement Committee that kind of shy away from the normal women's club meetings because they hate meetings, but they have meetings of their own. And they've got some giant plans for this place, and I would just like to turn over the microphone to the next speaker, who will put that together for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. And now we're going to hear from, excuse me, Carrie Gepner, our very own Carrie Gepner. That's with a C, not a G. And he's going to tell us about the future of the community house.
Well, it's very nice to be here tonight. A few years ago, my good friend John McNeil called me up, and he said that a new committee was going to form to work with the community house powers that be to try to create some improvements. And one of the main things that he was talking about was a home for TSEP. So the Community House Improvement Committee formed, and the first goal was to create a building that would be fireproof, bomb-proof, vandal-proof, kid-proof, and it was going to be located somewhere on this property. So we started discussing just that small notion, and then the plan started to grow. We started to discuss ideas like, what would the community like to see up here? This is really part of the community, and it's I have to talk into here? Oh my goodness, okay. Well, I'm going to pick it up, and actually I have a couple of slides that I'd like to share with you. So a couple of polls were given, and they were circulated, I believe, through the community club and also via the messenger, and they asked everybody in Topanga to list what they'd like to see up at the community house property. And there were several options, and when the votes all came in, I think the first poll a couple of years ago, there were maybe 60 respondents, and the home for TSEP was, of course, top on the list. There was also the desire to have a senior center, a teen center, a gymnasium, a pool, a library, a lot of things. Everybody wanted to see a lot of things happening here. So we started discussing amongst the CHIC committee, how are we going to accomplish all of this? Maybe we should go out and get another poll just to make sure that that's really what the community wants. So something was published, I think, in the messenger, and we got 12 responses that time. And top on the list was a pool. So we kind of took, within the committee, we decided what we thought would be really the priorities, and we came up with a preliminary plan, which I'll share with you in a moment. And then John McNeil and myself, with the assistance of Susan Nisman, arranged a meeting with the County Regional Planning Department. So we went downtown with our plan, and we met with some of the officials down there, and they were very helpful. They were looking at the plan, and they were looking at the history of the property, and they said, well, we have a little problem with the property up there. Your conditional use permit has run out. So you shouldn't even be operating up there any longer. And we went, oh, really? Okay. We were talking about permits. So there is no permit for us to even be congregating here tonight. But they were very kind and very understanding. They understood that we're doing our best and we are an institution. So they made a great suggestion. They looked at the zoning law and they said, your zone won't really allow you to have a library or a gymnasium. You can have this little building and do a few things, but you can't do everything you want to do unless you consider calling this a park, a community park. You can have a gymnasium in a community park. You can have basketball courts. You can have Little League fields. You can have libraries, swimming pools, all those things happen in a park. So we went, wow, the Topanga Community Park. Sounds pretty good. It's pretty, encompasses everything. So that's kind of where we are now. We have this plan. If we can just dim the lights a little and turn on the slide.
Let's live in a hideout in Topanga. Come on, let's head out to them hills. Lots of stained glass, cold water in the bath. We can live without those fancy frills. Let's live in a tree in Topanga. Maybe in the leaves they'd leave us be. We could live in a squirrel hole and play our rock and roll. Come out on the limb and you can be a nut like me, yeah!